Now, Smitty, you were watching the show with Adam Rank the other day. I know you were watching it. We answered. Yeah. I shouted you out. I answered. You were one of the only questions that I brought up to Adam. What did you think about some of his boomer bust takes? Because I know some of them directly contradicted with some of yours. Now, in particular, he's in on Saquon Barkley, and I know you're out on Saquon Barkley, but he is in on Saquon. What did you think about that?
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.
Top 5 running back. You're watching the Fantasy Football Show.
Smitty.
Take a lap.
Real quickly before we get to the interview, check this out. It helps the channel greatly if you guys can give this a try. Look at this right here. Prizepicks, over-unders. I love these. I love doing 3 of them at once and doing the multiplier where you got to get all 3 of them right, and then it like amplifies you can turn like $20 into 100. Henry, 1550. I do the under on that. Nick Chubb, I do the under on that. 1200 for McCaffrey. Do the over on the season. And if you want a free phone call from me, go to smitty1.com and click on this banner right here, Prizepicks, and do a $25 minimum deposit. Get a free phone call from me up to $100. They're going to match that over at Prizepicks.
Back to the interview.
So, Smitty, if you got the time, I have the boomer bust list that I ran through with Adam last night.
Yeah.
I could run it through with you, and you
for sure. Hit me with it.
Give me your version.
The Saquon Barkley thing, I don't know why people are so aggressively against my stance, which is my stance is a stance of caution. It has nothing to do with I'm out entirely on Barkley. It's that when you're dealing with a player with a torn ACL, or in the case of Mike Thomas, where he had that deltoid injury to his ankle/foot, and they haven't proven to be fully back yet, it's better to err on the side of caution when you're still talking about players like Davante Adams, who's the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football. So I'm saying take Adams, take Hill, whoever your number 3 wide receiver is too, and I'm even liking a guy like Gibson a little more than Barkley. But let's say you don't feel that way, that strongly. Taking him under the top 2 or 3 wide receivers is not crazy at all. It's cautious. And even Barkley, as much as a couple weeks ago, didn't know if he would be available for week 1. And why everybody's going blindly into this, going, no, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. He's Barkley. He's built different. That's not logical. Logical is saying, hey, Davante Adams gets taken number 6 or 7 overall. Why don't I just play it safe and take him over Barkley? That's my stance. But people take that as in he's fading Barkley entirely, and that's just not the case. But do I like a Gibson, who I think can rank around 12, 13, 14, 15 overall, play like a top 5 running back? Do I like him more, push come to shove, than Barkley? Right now, I do. And I could change my tune once we know more. But Barkley doesn't feel like he's going to be 100% for week 1, if I had to guess right now, based on everything I'm hearing. And he may have a great year, but he's also, I could say a risk injury-wise for the 2021 season, not to mention coming off an ACL tear, you have a high likelihood of a hamstring tear. There's a lot of tweak. There's a lot of injury risk for a player coming off that ACL tear. Even if Adrian Peterson did it, and even though Barkley is the most likely player out of all players I can think of to have the kind of rebound that AP had, it doesn't feel like he's right where AP was. It feels like he's a little bit behind, and I don't know why. And no one's really asking why. Did he have a setback? We'll find out. We don't hear things anymore in real time. We hear things like months later, the season's over, and they're like, oh, I played with a torn whatever all year. Right. We don't hear anything anymore. So something doesn't sound right as to why he's not fully ready and questioning it himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mixon at 2.4 over Ridley, over Clyde, over Gibson, over DK. Mixon has the potential to be a top 5 to 10 running back. I'm not gonna say he doesn't have the talent, but with 2 years of failing, regardless of how he finished 2019, he has failed 2 years in a row. I don't know how anybody wouldn't take a player that is still very arguable in the conversation of being top 1 to 5 at their position. Gibson, Clyde, both have that potential. DK, Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Ridley, Hopkins, all those guys could be 1 to 5 at their position. And I tell people always take best player available. And it's no different here. If you're taking Mixon, it's because you want to go RB. And you're not taking into account talent. You're taking into account position. And that's going to lead you down a road where you have the team that you like, but don't you want a team you love? You can't call yourself a Ceedee Lamb believer if you are ranking Amari ahead of him. I think for me, Lamb's about to drop top 5 wide receiver numbers, and no, I don't draft him at that area or territory, but I really believe this guy's going to take a huge step forward. And Cooper's coming back. He's not going to be 100 in week 1 either. So I'm not about drafting injured guys that already feel like there's a reason to be worried about him anyway. Like in Barkley's case. And as for Cooper, I like Cooper, but it's going to be, in my opinion, not being 100% healthy with Lamb ready to break out. It's going to be hard for Cooper, I think, to beat Lamb out. And I don't care about the discount. I'd rather just draft Lamb.
Now, in terms of the tight ends, he had some interesting takes too. He was calling, I brought up Darren Waller on purpose, and in the boom or bust, and he said Waller was going to bust, and he said he was going to bust because of how high of a position he's getting drafted. Do you agree with that? Because I agreed with that. I think Waller, for where he's going to get drafted, I think is going to be a letdown this year, personally.
It depends where he's going, because sometimes you'll have early tight ends going in round 2, and I'm not about taking a tight end in round 2 at all.
And that's exactly what he said. He said Waller and Kittle in round 2 is something that he really would not want to invest in.
Right, and that's because I like finding the next Waller and the next, Hawkinson. And I don't think there's a next Waller in this. For right now, I could change my mind. But there are several tight ends that have Hawkinson's upside, the ability to be as good. And 2 of them actually did it last year. 2 of them actually outscored Hawkinson. And that's number 3 in Logan Thomas and number 4 in Robert Tonyan. And they're both going in like 9, 10, 11, 12 round territory. Like, that's crazy. So those are 2 candidates are Tonyan, Logan Thomas. I like Tyler Higbee a lot. And we know what Stafford.
Yeah, I like Higbee.
Stafford turned,
especially with Stafford.
Right.
Yeah.
So Higbee, Goddard's he's been getting targeted heavily by Hurts, and Hurts is gonna lean on him a lot, I think. Goddard's a great breakout. And then Noah Fant is probably the most obvious, but still back far enough to where it makes a lot of sense to be the next Hawkinson.
Does the quarterback play worry you in Denver though?
It's the reason he's not like sticking out like a sore thumb. Yeah. Right. Like if Aaron Rodgers had been traded to Denver, we'd be talking about Fant to the moon, Javonte Williams.
Jeudy.
Yeah, Jeudy. And Judy's got top 12 wide receiver potential written all over him. The tricky part is, will I be a year early on that? Because I think that Denver's been looking for a quarterback for a while. They're not going to give up. I believe the future of that passing attack is not yet on the roster. And so, Jeudy could be a year early on him, but he's such a good route runner. Top 3 in the league already. Jerry Jeudy route running, just phenomenal. And coming out of college, everyone was talking like that too. It's not like anything new. But Jerry Jeudy, he could survive without, an elite quarterback. There are some wide receivers that have done that over the years. Hopkins did it. There's Calvin Johnson. A lot of wide receivers can figure out a way to still produce really, really good fantasy football numbers and NFL numbers. And I think Judy's got that kind of talent and skill set to where, I'm not saying he's the next Calvin Johnson. I'm just saying there are wide receivers that can either do it without the big name quarterback and some that cannot. And he's definitely one that can do it without. I think Amari Cooper would be a good example of a wide receiver that has to have the right situation. Lamb doesn't. Lamb will thrive anywhere. Jeudy will probably thrive anywhere. Granted, they'll thrive bigger and better with a good quarterback, but I think that Jeudy's special. So,
and that's another reason, and it's funny you say that. That's another reason why I think Fields is so impressive right now, because he is participating in these practices and making these guys who you never heard of household names in terms of, if you follow camp, like you hear the same names over and over for these wide receivers, these 4th string tight ends, guys you've never heard of. I understand that it's training camp. I understand, again, we talked about it 2nd string, but Fields is making, guys like Riley Ridley, guys like Javon Jay, or I don't even know these guys. I've never even heard of. And he's like making these guys spectacular catches. They're doing this, they're doing that. Fourth string tight ends, they're making these catches over the middle. And that is not because these guys are that good. It's because Justin Fields is that special of a player. He's just special. He's just a special player. Yeah. And that's my opinion on it. And, my friend Bobby in here, who's in here right now, he would agree that guy's special. He's special. There's something about him. So, I mean, it's interesting when you say stuff like that, like the certain receivers, they don't need, that great of a quarterback to thrive in certain situations. And those other guys, right.
Best player available may create holes in your lineup. Like you may go, for example, I number 1 overall, one of my favorite teams is to go McCaffrey at 1, and then at 24 and 25, the back-to-back turn picks, wide receiver. And then when everybody's like, okay, well, he doesn't have his running back 2 yet, I'll take Josh Allen in round 4. I don't care. I'll take best player available. I will platoon Michael Carter, Javonte Williams, Trey Sermon. I'll platoon my running back 2, and it's one of my favorite approaches is to ignore running back 2 and platoon it, because the odds, if you know what you're doing with sleepers, the odds are I'm going to have a top 10 running back in Carter, Sermon, or Javonte Williams. And I don't have to pay anything close to using my top 4 overall round picks. It's the best strategy you can deploy. And that's why Mixon's nowhere in my mind in round 2.
We're gonna have to talk offline about that, because that's secret strategy. I really don't want anybody else to hear, because I like it. last one, cuz Zeke Elliott.
Wow. Tony Pollard is the best backup running back in the entire league. And I think that because you can cuff Elliott, who has some mileage concerns, 1,500 or so carries and, so far, but he's such a different running back. I believe because if he didn't come into the offseason completely in the best shape of his life, which some people say, and that might be blown out of proportion, but he looks really good. I've seen a lot of film on him in practice. I wouldn't feel as confident saying that he's actually my number 3 overall pick in 2021. Really? And he used to be 9, 10, 11, 12, but then the report started surfacing. He's in the best shape of his life. He's climb. Now he's no shock in round or pick 5. Like if you're drafting number 5, you're not shocked if someone goes Elliott, over Henry, and they say, I'm going to take Elliott. Me, I'm worried enough about Cook. I don't know if you owned Dalvin Cook last year, but and you can cuff him to Madison too. So you could technically, he's my number 4. I'm not so scared of Cook that I'm not going to draft him 4, cuffing him to Madison. But Tony Pollard is on a whole nother level for being a backup running back. And he's just, if he gets in there, he's a top 6 to 10 running back. Tony Pollard is that good. You're so safeguarded taking Elliott and Pollard, especially given how good Elliott looks. You might never need Pollard. But I have Elliott as a big boom because of that strategy. But if I can't get Pollard, it makes me worried. But look at the top 4 running backs. You have McCaffrey, Chuba Hubbard. Now, Chuba Hubbard's a little shaky as the backup because you don't truly know how a rookie will translate yet. But he is a really, really good backup, super talented. Number 2 overall, most people have Cook or Kamara, but both of them, Lat Murray, Alexander Madison, Elliott, Pollard. Henry's the only one in that group that does not have a backup you'd even want to own. And so that's why Henry's falling. A 2,000-yard curse going against him, the 371 carry curse going against him in just a 2.8-year span. We're not talking about his whole career because he's been in the league a while, and I know he wasn't used a ton early on, but he's used a ton in college, used a ton in high school. He's got a lot of mileage, but just looking in that short window is what worries me. It's not that Zeke Elliott, who's got 1,500, total carries, that's worrisome, and that's higher than any running back you can really find that's relevant. Like really, anybody that has this amount of carries is not relevant. So it is a little bit of a worry, but this guy in 2.8 seasons is going to reach 1,000 in 2.8 seasons. That is a tight window, and I don't know if you know DeMarco Murray, guys like that, when they hit that 371 carry total in one season, they break the next year. It's been breached before, but Henry had 400 plus in 2020, and and he still had that heavy workload. So I worry a ton about Henry, and so for that reason, I love Zeke.
No, and
1 plus 1 equals 5.
I've been preaching because I've been preaching that I think the wheels are going to fall off on Derrick Henry eventually. He can't sustain the kind of success I don't think that he's been sustaining. But regardless, that was a tremendous session on the Boom or Bust, bro. And I appreciate you letting me come on tonight and let me rap with you for a little bit about it. We got to do it again soon.
Yeah, man.
And if you want a free phone call from me, go to Smitty1.com and click on this banner right here, Prizepicks, and do a $25 minimum deposit. Get a free phone call from me up to $100. They're going to match that over at Prizepicks. One of the coolest ways to play DFS, you can do over-unders that are unbelievable, like 1,200 yards over or under on Barkley, 1,200 yards over or under on Jefferson. Pick 3 guys. Look at this right here. Prizepicks, over-unders. I love these. I love doing 3 of them at once and doing the multiplier where you got to get all 3 of them right, and then it like amplifies you can turn like $20 into 100. Henry, 1550. I do the under on that. 1375. I'm going to do the under on that for rushing yards. I do both unders on these two. Nick Chubb, I do the under on that. 1,200 for McCaffrey. Do the over on the season. Do the over on that bad boy. Zeke Elliott, 1,100. He's gonna eat. Give me the over on that. Somebody go do those exact ones right there and send me a screenshot. I want to see what you think. There's nothing cooler than doing over and unders and having that, holding that all year as you watch it unfold. I love this. Prizepicks. $100 match. Go do it. Smitty1.com. Go, go, go.
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.
Top 5 running back. You're watching the Fantasy Football Show.
Smitty.